Welcome to A Step into Sports. I am Logan Hayes, and today I'm here with Nick Wiget. Nick, why don't you tell them a little about yourself?
Well, hi, Logan. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. What can I tell you about myself? Well, since you're interviewing me for a sports show, it just happens to be that I work a lot in sports and sports video production and audio production, and have for about the last, almost the last 15 to 16 years now. My path to doing that was kind of an awkward one. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going. But yeah, I work for a lot of local area sports teams, and I've done sports work all around the world when it comes to production and announcing, PA announcing, and play-by-play broadcasting.
All right, so Nick, where did you go to college and what was your major?
Well, now I started at Xavier University in 1997, where I didn't have a major picked out. I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I had for a while thought that I wanted to be a pharmacist because one of my friend's dads was a pharmacist, and this sounds so trite and stupid, but he got like cool pens and notepads and like trinkets at the pharmacy all the time, and I just thought his job sounded kind of cool and fun, and he helped people, and I was kind of into science and math and things like that. And so I was like, oh, I think I'll be a pharmacist. But when I went to college, I never even majored in like pre-med or pharmacy or anything. I immediately went into like English and history for some reason. So I got to Xavier. Exactly. I got there and I thought, well, I'll take some classes in like the history because I kind of like it. I had a professor I really liked. So I was going to be a high school teacher of some sort. That was my first thought. I'll teach English or I'll teach history or I'll do something like that. So long story short, my first year came and went at Xavier, and I was still a little directionless, like some college freshmen can be.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I transferred back to Wilmington, back to my hometown college, and I met Dorothy Gertzweiler, who is the director of the Com Arts department here at Wilmington. Because long story short, during an interview with an admissions counselor here, Steve Spurg,
Mhm.
he said to me, he goes, you've had a business as a disc jockey for like the last several years of your life, almost 10 years at that point. I was a mobile disc jockey from the time I was 11 years old. He says, you're into music, you're into talking on the microphones and playing with cameras. He goes, why aren't you a communication major? And I think I answered him with something like, I don't think you can make any money doing that. And I was right, but still, it's something that I was good at and something that I liked. So he introduced me to Dorothy, and the rest is history. Dorothy got me involved with more video editing and audio editing and things like that. And I kind of picked up some of that stuff on my own too, as I kind of made my way through my first few years of college. And then I decided I was going to teach college. So I ended up going to get a master's degree at the University of Dayton and pursued a PhD at Bowling Green State University. And that took up another decade almost of my life doing that and teaching at various places.
All right, so you wanted to be a pharmacist,
Yeah.
and then you
You
went
didn't know that
for.
about me,
I did
probably.
not. I did not know that.
I
And
could
then
have been giving you your medications. Yeah, I don't know why. It was just one of those things where I don't know if you've ever experienced it. Like somebody has a job that you think is
Mhm.
kind of cool, and you
Yeah.
go, "Man, he makes good money doing that." And at the time, I don't know if I understood fully the responsibility that went with that. Of like,
Mhm.
man, you got to be careful when it comes to doling out medications and stuff. I just thought I was like, this looks like it's kind of fun. And Steve's family does pretty well doing this. And his dad had been a construction worker and had gotten hurt on the job and he changed careers. And I watched him go through all this education, like as a kid. He
Mhm.
went to the University of Cincinnati, got his pharmacy degree and everything. So we kind of watched him do this. And I thought, yeah, it'd be kind of fun, man. Like that's a job in the medical field that's not like being a doctor. I don't feel like I'd have to perform surgeries or anything like that. But I think that'd be great. It'd be a good gig, and it's a lifelong gig, right? There's always going to be a need for pharmacists. So yeah, I could have very well been a legal drug dealer instead of instead of the communication person that I am today.
All right, so from wanting to be a pharmacist to working in sports, what attracted you into the sporting field?
Well, okay, that's kind of a funny thing because, like I told you, I came into college and ended up becoming a com arts major, and
Mhm.
and sports was never even in my view. Like I liked growing up. I played sports growing up. Obviously, I was a little kid, soccer, baseball, all that sort of stuff. I was a member of a swimming club. I'd go over there and swim in the summertime and things like that. I'd never consider myself to be pretty like athletic. I mean, you've seen me now. But that being said, I did run cross country in high school, and I played football a little bit in high school, and I did a lot of things like that just because I enjoyed the social aspect.
Mhm.
Baseball, I loved, and soccer, I actually grew to quite fond of. Because I feel like my generation was kind of one of the first generations to play a lot of youth soccer, I guess, in the US. So I was always kind of following soccer and baseball. Um, so yeah. So anyway, when I got to college, another friend of the family who was a soccer coach at Wilmington asked me about announcing sports, Bud Lewis, and he said, I need someone to announce soccer matches. That's you're a radio guy and you got a great voice. You could probably do that. And I said, I've always liked the idea of working at a baseball team or for a sports team,
Mhm.
playing music or announcing or something like that. But I never really knew how to approach that. Sport management, like what you guys do now, it was kind of a thing, I guess. But I'd never had it anywhere in my view, like to see that was something that I could even major in or anything. Even here at Wilmington, I don't know. I guess we had a major. I don't know at that point. So at any rate, I started announcing some stuff and I started incorporating more, fun things into it, like sound effects and music. And I got into it, man. I mean, there might have been 20 people watching a soccer match on a rainy night on a Wednesday night, but I treated it as like it was the World Cup. Like every goal was a big announcement. There was a music, something that played after that to celebrate the goal. And I know a lot of my classmates here and a lot of the guys on the team were really into it. I even heard opposing team players say stuff like, dude, I feel like we just played like a major league match. Like, whoa, that was different. So when I started hearing feedback like that from people, I got the notion that, I kind of like this idea of maybe doing some work in sports. But I didn't really continue that too much past college for several years. I was, like I said, a mobile DJ. So you think weddings, class reunions, parties, and things like that, right? I had done that since I was 11 years old. And that's kind of how I got into sports announcing. There's the long story about it that my dad, when I turned 11, bought me my first DJ setup. And I had speakers and lights and CD player and a tape deck. And I'd go to play parties and stuff and I would announce the songs. So I felt like I was a radio guy. And that's what I thought I would pursue when I got to college. And I did work in radio, but I just kind of slowly but surely evolved from radio and media in that regard to sports media and to sports production.
So you said it took a while before you got into a sports job after college. What was your first job then in sports?
Well, it took me, I'd say, about 4 years, I guess it was, after college.
Mhm.
Although I say that, and I feel like I came and did some soccer games and stuff, maybe even after I graduated in 2001. Um, it's been a long time, man. It's hard to believe that, but it's been a long time. And so I ended up, a friend of mine was on the basketball team at Wilmington College,
Mhm.
and she and her teammates won a national championship in 2004, one of the most successful teams ever in the history of the college. So anyway, my friend Brittany Morris was working as an intern at the time, and she was a sport management major, I think. She worked for a company called Game Day Communications in Cincinnati. She was an intern for them over the summer. And I get a phone call from her one day, and she says, "Hey, there's a new pro soccer team in Cincinnati. It's part of this thing called the United Soccer League." And she said, "Would you be interested in doing some announcing like you did at Wilmington?" And I said, "It's funny because," I said, "I'm teaching at the University of Dayton right now. And one of my coworkers in the office, her boyfriend is the goalie for that team." And she goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, I've heard about it, but I had no idea. I just heard that her boyfriend was playing goalie or whatever for this new pro team." And so at any rate, she says, "The general manager is going to call you here in about 10 minutes probably. And he wants to talk to you because there's an immediate opening for public address." And I went, "Oh, okay, great." So, and at the time, I had, again, no idea that I was going to work in sports or anything. And this general manager calls me, a guy named JT Roberts, and he says, "Hey, we're starting this new second division team in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Kings. We're having a scrimmage tonight against Xavier University. And if you're interested, I'd like for you to come down and check it out." And I said, "Well, okay." I said, "Because you come highly recommended from Brittany and Betsy and Jackie at Game Day Communications." And I'm like, I don't know Betsy and Jackie." Well, it turned out Betsy Ross, who runs Game Day Communication, and her partner there, Jackie Rowe, they were starting a new company in Cincinnati doing sports marketing and things like that called Game Day Communications. They do things like the Cincinnati Flying Pig Marathon, and they work with the Cincinnati Bengals and a bunch of other partners all around the area. And so I show up in Cincinnati at Xavier, which is where they had their home games. And the general manager says, hey, you seem like a great guy and I really like you. He says, would you like to try it tonight and announce the game? And I'm like, the game kicks off in 45 minutes. He goes, yeah, I guess. And so I sat down with like napkins and pens and wrote down the lineup and everything. And I'm going, oh yeah, I'll just do it like I did at Wilmington, I guess. And so I did the game, and it was I got done, and he comes back over and he goes, you've done this before. Like you're really good. And I said, well, I really appreciate that. And he goes, will you do every other game this year? I'll give you the schedule. Will you do all the home games? And I said, yeah. And I looked down at the schedule, and the next one was a friendly against the Columbus Crew. And I went, my first real game is going to be against a Major League Soccer opponent? He goes, yeah, we're doing a friendly against them coming up on Saturday. He says, we should have a few thousand fans here at Xavier for that. And I'm like, wow, that escalated quickly. And so he says, well, he didn't even know how much to pay me. He just threw out a figure and goes, what do you think about this? And it was almost as much as I made sometimes DJing. And that's when I was like, this was 2005. And I went, man, DJing's fun and I make good money doing it, but it's a lot of heavy equipment. And my dad was helping me out, and he's getting older. And, if all I got to bring is maybe a laptop and a microphone to something and just sit in a booth and announce and make similar money and enjoy what I'm doing, yeah, I think I might do this. And it's guaranteed. There's 17 gigs here this summer or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So at any rate, there I was. I met up with Jackie and Betsy, and I'd been familiar with Betsy. She had been on Cincinnati News, and she was a anchor on Sports Center for a while. Although I have to admit, funny story there is I didn't place her at first. She thought I knew who she was, and I didn't know who she was. And then finally I was like, I know you from somewhere. So anyway, they're doing the marketing, and they're like, hey, you're really good at this. Maybe we can get you some more opportunities or whatever. So that's how that started, that I started with the Cincinnati Kings of the United Soccer Leagues. They played a total of 9 seasons, believe it or not, 8 or 9 seasons. They ended up going back and forth between what's called the PDL, the Player Development League, and second division of the USL. And so minor league soccer with about, anywhere between 200 fans a game, or like the Crew game had maybe a few thousand fans there. I thought, man, this is about as big as it's going to get for me. Like I just got a gig and I'm announcing in front of 3,000 fans, and this is the Columbus Crew, and that's kind of a cool deal. So that was 2005, and that's how I really got started in a sports announcing like I do today.
So who all do you work for today?
Well, now that's I work. I'm trying to remember the list here. One thing has led to another, and
yeah.
I know that you mentioned this before we went on the air to talk about the Globetrotters thing, which we'll get to that here in a little bit. That was another door opening experience. The Dayton Dragons were another experience. I worked there for 5 seasons, and that was another opening the door kind of thing. You can't do any worse than working for one of the best minor league ball teams in the country and organizations in Dayton, and they do a fantastic job. That came about incidentally because I was teaching college and I had a student that worked there, and he says, hey, I know this guy that works in sports. If you need someone to come in and do something, anything, he can probably do it. So I started doing stats there, right? And then that led to something else and led to something else. But now, if we were to go through the entire list, I work, I'll tell you where I work and kind of what I do. For the Cincinnati Reds, I do production and Reds Productions. So I was hired in as a game day DJ, which is the guy that plays like pre-recorded music and sound effects in the ballpark. From there, I've worked several other positions, including graphics, LED display. This year, I got the opportunity to be the crowd noise. I was literally the fake fan, so to speak, which was talk about a unique opportunity. That was awesome. I also work in baseball for the Columbus Clippers, which is the AAA affiliate of the Cleveland Indians, where I have done everything you can imagine in a control room. They've been very, very open with. I started there as a DJ because they knew I knew how to do that, and then it was, hey, if you know how to do that, you can run TV audio. But you can also do TV graphics. You can also run our scoreboard because it's just clicking buttons, and you seem to listen very well. You know how to run DAC stats, right? You can run stats. So I've done everything in that control room, dang near, that you can possibly do for that team. And some of that came from experience with the Dragons and other places too. Then I also work for, FC Cincinnati, where I'm the public address announcer for what used to be USL Club. Now it's Major League Soccer Club. So you talk about a full circle. I worked in USL Soccer, out of it for several years. Then I get a phone call. Hey, we got this new team in Cincinnati. This was 2 years into their existence. And hey, we've been kind of looking for you. You're the announcer for the Kings, right? Hey, you want to come do FC Cincinnati? Yeah. So, and that was through a connection at the Reds, because a buddy of mine that works there with us is a producer for FC Cincinnati. So I worked there for the Major League Soccer Club. In Cincinnati, since I'm going that route, University of Cincinnati Athletics. I've been there for the last 3 years or 3 years plus. And I have announced almost every sport they've got, and some they don't have anymore, including men's soccer, which is how I got started. I've kind of been known as a soccer guy, and then everything else just came through. I had the awesome opportunity to announce football for UC, and I've announced men's and women's basketball and soccer and lacrosse. I did the crosstown shootout when it was there a couple years ago, which was awesome for me because I went to Xavier, funny enough, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm announcing the crosstown shootout for UC. But the people at UC are awesome. Flying Pig Marathon is a direct result of hanging out with Jackie and Betsy from Game Day. They were the marketing team for that, and they got me into doing indoor soccer back in 2010, I think it was, with another iteration of a Cincinnati Kings organization that played in an arena soccer league. So we played at the now defunct Cincinnati Gardens for 2 seasons. And I went and announced indoor soccer. And Betsy and Jackie approached me. I think it was actually Betsy. It said, "Hey, you want to announce the Flying Pig Marathon?" And I said, "Well, I don't know how you would announce a race." And she goes, "Well, you're saying people's names and you're reading sponsor things and all that sort of stuff." So I started doing that in 2011. So that goes back to my Dayton Dragons days and pre everything almost. And then they liked what I did there well enough that they said, "You're going to be the host of the opening ceremonies in the morning on Channel 5. So we'll go live to you for like 20 minutes. You'll interview people. You'll do all the opening introductions. Then we'll go into the race." So I've been doing that now except for this year, obviously, with COVID. Yeah. I've done that every year. University of Dayton, one of my alma maters, where I got my master's degree. There's some really great folks up there that worked for Dayton Public Schools, and I worked with me at the Dragons. So everyone works together, right? Mm-hmm. And they said, "Hey, you did really good work with us at the Dragons and really good work with us for Dayton Public Schools, where I did play-by-play football for a season. Hey, man, do you want to come in and work some games at University of Dayton? You can do all the different sports there." And I've done every sport imaginable there. Even football, basketball, soccer, you name it. Softball. I haven't done baseball yet, but I've done softball. And worked with some really cool folks there, many of whom I knew in previous lives working somewhere else, kind of. So you run into the same people a lot. In Columbus, because of the Columbus Clippers gig, a lot of that crew also works the Blue Jackets, so National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. So they come to me and said, "Do you want to work hockey?" And I go, "Well, I go to a lot of games anyway, so yeah." So I've done almost everything in the control room there, including replay on the big board. I've done graphics. I've done DJing. I've done lights in the arena. I have, on occasion, been the guy that hits the goal horn, which is a super big responsibility. Don't hit it too early, but don't hit it too late, right? So that's one where everyone gets a little panicky because you don't want to screw it up and hit it at the wrong time. Cool opportunities there to literally do all the stuff they do. I worked arena football there in the arena last year for the Columbus Destroyers. Again, some of the same people work the same events. I've worked the NCAA tournament, both men's and women's, over the last 3 or 4 years, doing different graphics-based things or playing music. I did a basketball tournament when was this? Like last fall, was it, I guess, when LeBron James' son played at Nationwide Arena. So we had Bronny's team there playing from California against LeBron's old high school, St. Mary, St. Vincent or whatever. And so, so there we were. And then I'm playing music and LeBron James is sitting over next to us. And it's, and I was a runner up for the PA announcing job for the Cavaliers a few years ago. So I've been lucky and been fortunate. And I think that, I went through that whole laundry list, but one thing leads to another. Mm-hmm. And and NASCAR, I knew I was going to forget something. Kentucky Speedway asked me to do the races last year. So maybe if they get some more races coming in next year, including even Xfinity races, I know they lost their main race that's coming up, but yeah, I got to do the Cup races and everything there last year, which was pretty cool. So yeah, I've been busy, man.
And the Harlem Globetrotters, you also did stuff with them. You didn't mention them.
Well, okay, let's go back to that because that's a pretty interesting one, right? You know me well. You know I'm a huge pro wrestling dork, and so the whole notion of predetermined sports or entertainment's kind of fun anyway. I think to me it's all the same. Whether I'm doing a ball game or whatever, it doesn't have to be predetermined to be fun and entertaining, right? That's part of what we do everywhere else. It's a show that we're putting on for people. It's in like an addendum to the game, you know.
Yeah.
So with the Globetrotters, you're part of the show. And so what happened with that was that I had gone for like 3 or 4 years in a row to see the Globetrotters at the Nutter Center in Dayton on New Year's Eve. They always have a show there. It's part of their regular tour schedule. And I'd been working at Wright State, and we got tickets through the radio station there, WWSU. And long story short, at one of the games, I guess it must have been in early 2012, a friend of mine had said something like, I wonder how you become an announcer with the Globetrotters. And I said, I would not have the foggiest idea how that happens. I don't even know anything about the organization or anything. Well, it turns out a guy I knew added me to a Facebook group of public address announcers. And probably, I don't know, maybe a month later, this post comes up and says, immediate opening, public address announcer, Harlem Globetrotters, and they're based out of Phoenix, of all places. So I get on and fill out a quick, I send my resume in, I think. I don't know if I even sent in like an audition tape or anything. And I get a phone call back from one of their producers right around Valentine's Day of 2012. And he says, hey, we're looking to hire an announcer and you've got some good experience and it sounds like you'd be our type of guy. And it was a very short phone call. And I go, okay. And I said, what do you need? When would you like me to go? And he goes, how about today? And I go, you want me to leave now? like immediately. Well, hold on. Let me see. We're switching some stuff around on the tour and I don't know exactly when or where I'll need you yet. So he calls me back the next day and says, hey, I'm going to put you on hold. We're not going to send you out immediately, but I'll let you know. And don't worry, you've got the job. So I'd already told everybody, hey, you're never going to believe this, but I'm an announcer for the Harlem Globetrotters now. I don't know how this all came about, but here I am, right? And so early March, he calls me up and says, hey, can you leave tonight? And I said, can I leave tomorrow? I said, it's like 4:00 in the evening. I don't have anything packed or anything. Yeah, I'll be fine. He goes, fly to Orlando and meet up with the team, says, and then we'll get you going on the road. And so I didn't know the schedule. I didn't know the pay rate. I didn't know anything. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have any attire. I just packed some stuff I thought I'd need for a couple month trip because I knew that the tour was going to run through the end of April at least, right?
Yeah.
And I told them, I got to be back by 1st of May. I have a Flying Pig Marathon to announce. I've already told them I'd do that. And they said, we can do that. So at any rate, I leave early March and I fly to Orlando and meet up with this team. And I don't meet anybody the first night that I'm there. The power is out at the hotel in downtown Orlando because they were getting ready to implode the old Orlando arena, which is incidentally where I saw my first NBA basketball game back in '96. But anyway, they were imploding the arena and they said, well, they had to shut the power off. It's going to be kind of a weird thing. But in the morning when you get up, it'll all be back on. Okay. So I couldn't even get a hold of anybody or anything. It was really weird, right? All the hallways are dark. So anyway, I get up, I meet up with some guys. We get on a bus and we go to Gainesville, Florida. And we're at the University of Florida at the Stephen O'Connell Center. And I walk in, we stopped at a mall to get some food. Somebody asked me where my blue sport coat was. And I go, I didn't even know I needed one. So I literally went to a JCPenney and bought a blue sport coat after lunch. Got to the arena and I said, okay, so who am I announcing or who am I shadowing for this? And they go, shadowing? They're like, you're the new announcer, right? And I go, yeah, but I said, I don't have a script. This is a scripted show. But yeah, I don't have a script. And they were like, are you serious? And I go, yeah. And they said, who hired you? And I told them the producer's name and they went, yeah, okay. Did he send you any paperwork? And I go, no. And they go, he flew you here with nothing? And I go, yeah. And so they said, well, the show starts in like an hour and there's going to be like 6,000 fans here. We've already sold 6,000 tickets and you're the announcer. I am? Oh, well, I better figure out this show in the next hour. So the game ran out to the bus. They got a copy of the script. They come back in. They set me down to this computer, and they're showing me this program called Click Effects Pro Audio, which, by the way, I learned it really quickly, and that's what I've used at a lot of other places, including the Reds. That's how I got the job as the DJ at the Reds. So I start figuring out how that works and everything, and all the sound effects that go along with the game, and how to play the music, because I'm doing all of it, sight unseen. They had no idea. And so they start bringing fans in, and they're filling the bowl, and I'm going, well, you know what? At this point, I don't know what I'm doing. They don't know what I'm doing. We'll follow along. I got a guy over here that's going to kind of help me a little bit. We're just going to have to do it. And so and people said, well, did you get nervous? I go, no, didn't have a chance to. Just they came out, the guy next to me said, say something like this. And so I just said something like that into the microphone and just kept repeating what I thought should be said at certain times. And we got done, and they go, yeah, you did a pretty good job. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to do it tomorrow in Lakeland. Okay, let's go back to the hotel and do it all over again, right? So, 3 days after that, we had a big show in Miami at American Airlines Arena during the day. And at night, LeBron James and the Miami Heat at the time were playing the Pacers. And I kept thinking, how did I get here? 3 days ago, I didn't even know what the heck I was doing. And now I'm opening up for LeBron James and the Heat, like the defending NBA champions or whatever. Okay, like cool. And so tour kept going, man. And I ended up over the course of the next 2 months there, going everywhere in the United States you can imagine, all the way up to Alaska. And then fall of 2012 came along, and they had supplemental tours during the summer and the fall. And they go, do you want to go do a tour in northern Michigan with us for a week or two? Yeah. They said, we really like what you do. And hey, do you want to go on a military tour with us? Yeah, we would like you to go. I said, sure. I said, where are we going? They go, well, you're going to go to Afghanistan in the Middle East, and you're going to travel to Northern Africa. And they gave me this whole list, and I'm like, I'm going to Afghanistan. That's something. All right. So we did games in Kabul and Jalalabad Air Force Base there in Afghanistan. Got to meet a lot of cool service people, and got to travel to places I never thought in the world I'd ever be going to for fun, including Afghanistan or Iraq and all that. And so got to do all that, and then went out for another world tour the next year and traveled all over the world again and throughout Central America. And yeah, it was kind of a wild ride. And on the military tour, we had several stops in Europe as well, and that was kind of fun. Some places I'd never been, other places I had, but altogether, I did hundreds and hundreds of these Globetrotters games, and I did parts of 3 seasons with the Globetrotters before I ended up coming back here and leaving all that behind and joining the Reds in 2014. So yeah, there's the Globetrotter thing. It was a wild experience because
sounds like it.
Yeah, and you don't even know, next thing you know, you're sitting at you're sitting at the table and getting ready to announce a game, and the CEO comes over one time in Omaha, Nebraska, and says, hey, we're going to have a special guest sit with you today. He goes, because this is, I think that you're a really good guy, and you speak well, and you're very competent. I want you to like kind of schmooze our guest. And I go, okay, who is it? And he goes, Warren Buffett. And I go, the billionaire? Yeah, he owns this arena and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I sat there with Warren Buffett and had a hot dog with him, and I announced the game, and he was like, you did a great job. I'm like, thanks, man. And lots of sports stars come out to the games. Throughout the time I was there, we had several NFL and major league players. The one that I always think is kind of funny is we were in Oregon, and pregame of a game in Oregon, in Bend, Oregon. And I didn't know where this guy had grown up. So to me, he was associated with New England, the Patriots, your team, right? So a dude walks up, and he's got a couple kids with him, and he says, hey, I'm here to do the pre-show thing for VIP guests. And I said, oh, okay. So what's your name? He goes, Drew Bledsoe. And I went, oh, like the quarterback. And he goes, that's me. And I went, oh, okay, cool, man. And I walked over, and I got the other people. I said, hey, I said, Drew Bledsoe's here with his family. And they're like, you didn't recognize him at all? And I'm like, no, sure didn't. I knew Jerome Bettis when he walked up. I knew a couple other guys. In Washington one time, a guy sat next to me for the better part of halftime and talked to me about all sorts of basketball stuff. And I kept going, I know this guy. And so I got on the bus afterwards, and one of our referees goes, boy, you and Sam Cassell had a heck of a conversation there during halftime, didn't you? And I went, that's who it was, Sam Cassell. No clue. I knew him, and he was just like, hey, I'm like, I don't know, I know him from somewhere. So yeah. In Atlanta, there was a guy walked up to me that I did know though. At halftime, dude comes up and says something like, hey, you're doing a good job, and can I come out here and take photos of the kids? Because there were kids doing halftime stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, Usher. You can do that. And all the guys were like, dude, that's Usher. And I'm like, yeah, I recognized him. Like, I didn't recognize a lot of these other guys, but I was a music guy. So I know, yeah, that's Usher. That's the thing. That's the singer, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Nice guy, man. So.
All right. So we have time for about like one or two more questions here.
Sorry. Yeah. You didn't get a word in edgewise on any of this. Sorry.
You're good. Have you had your I made it moment then in sports? Like where you're like sat down and like, okay, I made it. I'm comfortable. And what was that exact moment then?
I don't know. I think it's funny because I always say this was a moment that I remembered. I think it was the second game we did in Lakeland, Florida with the Globetrotters, where after the game, we started to go back out to the buses because we traveled a lot by bus, except for when we had to go long distances. And there were some kids out there getting autographs from people. And this one kid walked up to me with his mother and said he wanted an autograph on his basketball. And I said, well, I'm just the announcer. And she goes, oh, he knows exactly who you are. Like he heard you and said you sounded like a guy from WWE, so he likes you. And then I was just like, yeah, I sound like a WWE guy. Like, okay, cool. Like, dude, like, yeah, I'll sign anything you got, So I think it was, and also they said, man, you did a great job and you were so into it and everything. And I said, well, that's part of the show, man. And I said, I really appreciate you saying that.
So you made it when you signed your first autograph.
I don't know that well, and how weird is that too? You're looking at me and going, obviously this dude's a pro baller. So you sign things like basketballs and you feel kind of stupid. And I always told people, I said, you only came up to me because there's long lines for everyone else, right?
How many autographs have you signed then? A good amount?
Oh, quite a few. Yeah. And all around the world, there's basketballs with my name on it, probably in programs and other little items, which hey, you know what? I'm totally cool with that. I think that's awesome. And I never deny anybody. Someone said to me one time, well, isn't that kind of weird? Is she taken away from the players and all this stuff? And a guy that was one of our tour managers said, no, Nick is the type of guy that he pleases our fans no matter what they want. And if they want his autograph, then by gosh, he gives them his autograph. And he takes pictures with them and everything too. I said, I did. I took pictures with total strangers all the time. And I had no issue doing that. They thought I was cool and they liked what I did. And so somebody up in, Saskatchewan has a photo of hanging out with the Globetrotter announcer and they thought it was cool. And I thought it was cool too. So yeah.
So to you, how important are internships then in the sports management field?
It depends. I think it's one of those things where I feel like there's an overabundance of people get picked to do internships because they want manual labor done or something, like, hey, come do this for us because we don't want to pay anybody to do that. So I'm really funny about that sort of stuff. I always stress to people that, your time is worth something to you.
Yeah.
And I know you get opportunities to work with people or they get to know you a little bit through an internship. But in my personal experience, I worked at the radio station here in town when there was one. And from the word go, they never said like free internship. They said, come in, we'll give you like minimum wage and we'll give you a job to do and you'll get to do all the other stuff too. So I always think that, these teams, a lot of them will give you a little side jobs or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And maybe you get paid for a game and it's only like, 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever it is. But, always value that and always value your time when it comes to, you are providing a service for these folks. That being said, I never had an internship in sports. That sounds weird, right?
Yeah.
I never really
I think
did.
you're the first I've interviewed that didn't have an internship in sports.
I didn't know I was going into sports. That wasn't where I was headed, right? I was radio DJ guy, or I was going to be announcer guy or whatever. I never had much, not that I didn't have an interest in it, obviously. And I like what I do and like what we do when it comes to sports stuff. It just was not like my key focus. So I wasn't like, I need to work in sports or I need to work for a certain team or an organization. I mean, I've just been really blessed that, I grew up around here and I rooted for a lot of the local sports teams because I'm from here,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have ties to all these things. The Bengals used to come to Wilmington for training camp. The Reds are the hometown team. The Blue Jackets were on the radio station here as an affiliate. We were an affiliate of the Blue Jackets during the first couple seasons, and they'd come to town for things like festivals and put on little hockey clinics and things like that. The Clippers were the same way. Soccer around the area has been something that's we've had a strong soccer stronghold here in the area. Cincinnati is one of the largest youth soccer markets in the entire country. So like all those things kind of just came about and just kind of, I don't know, just kind of came about and came to be that way.
Yeah.
So I never sought out any like, I need to go work for a sports team. I always thought to myself, I'm going to work probably in media of some sort. And it just happened to be that one thing led to another. And it's been sport media. You may be surprised, I think a lot of people are, that I'm not the type of guy to watch a lot of sports on TV. I'm also not the type of guy to watch like ESPN or FS1 coverage of like, say, sports like news. Couldn't tell you, man. Couldn't tell you about. And it's for me, it's kind of shocking because I used to know all the baseball rosters, and then of course these days with free agency and everything, I was joking around this year that we played some teams we don't normally play, and you know the American League a lot, and I'm going, now like 3 guys on this team. That's weird. Like you think I'd know more of these people, but we don't cover them as much as we used to. So it's it's a little bizarre for me not to know the starting lineup for every team or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of how that all came to be.
Well, thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Really insightful interview here and a very interesting path into sports.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me, man. It's always nice talking to you.
Any parting advice for people watching this looking to get into the sports industry?
I think one of the things is don't overthink it. Don't think to yourself that you have to have this dream job the moment you get out of school or whatever. Although things might fall into place, right? I think for me, you know, I told you from 2001 to 2005, I didn't do a whole lot. I announced a few games here and there. Of course, I changed course to grad school and was busy doing other things, and it wasn't even in my sights to do that. But if you work hard at what you do and you're nice to people, good things will happen. They'll see that you're a good person to be around, and it's like any other job in any other field. They're going to say, you know what, I worked with Nick over here and I really liked him. He was cool and nice and he listened. And if he didn't know something, he wanted to learn. For me, that's one of the big things too. If you don't know how to do something, don't just say, well, I really don't know anything about that. Try to learn it. See if you can pick it up. See if it's something you can do, because, you know, I'm not a graphics guy. I don't build graphics or do a lot of stuff with Photoshop or anything like that, but I know enough to get by. And when a team needs me to, hey man, can you build this headshot really quick? Yeah, I know enough to do something like that. And now I'm more valuable to the organization because I'm not just Mr. Announcer guy or Mr. Music guy. I'm now Mr. He can push that button too guy. So now it's, hey, you want to work every game? Because we'll put you somewhere. So I always encourage people to think outside the box when it comes to that sort of thing too. And always have these skills that you can apply to working in sports, you know. I know it's a long answer to your very short question, but you know, working in sports is like working anywhere else except for the environment, right? Have
absolutely.
those tangible skills where you know how to do something, because you're not going to be playing the game, obviously. If you're working in the offices, you're going to be doing something else that is just involves some other skills or something else that you've learned, and just applying that into that organization.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks, Logan. It's been great, man. Nice talking to you.